this notification. Let's just stay. Hold on.
Yeah, because you have to all the participants have to okay that, I guess, before it even goes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't sound very fun.
All right.
It makes sense you have to do that though, right?
Well, yeah, it's like a liability thing.
But obviously, if you sign on to this, you know that you're going to be honest.
Yeah. Like, good morning to the, oh, there's James.
Oh yeah. James.
Actually, good afternoon because he's overseas.
A lot of people. That's to say, I know he lives here, but it's kind of like the thing where everybody's going overseas. We got to go overseas soon.
Oh, morning, Estella.
Oh, hey, Stella.
Morning,
Might,
Bill.
we might going overseas now to get away from Bike Week.
Oh my God, it's so loud.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, they'll be out and about here soon. Although it's going to rain today, so I don't know what that's going to do.
I
That's going to
know.
if they're going to cut into the shenanigans. I don't know if it's going to rain or not. Who the hell knows? But hey, what's going on with you, Mayor? What's happening?
Not much. We've already been out and did our shopping for the day. Some
Oh my God,
exciting
you're
stuff.
so responsible out and about.
Mm.
No, it's good. It's good to get out and about. So it's going to be warm and sticky here. But yeah, but in any case, so it's post anniversary weekend here, which is a lot of the folks have left
Which means
this,
it's bike week.
which is Bike Week, of course, and of course, um, the haunted Annabelle doll is in town.
Yes.
So you have the paranormal folks, you have the bike people, all in town. So this has been a weird, wild, and wacky couple of days. So we'll have some fun with that. So we're gonna have some stuff with that. But in the meantime, we'll do
Yeah.
this. We'll talk about this and talk about the goings on and what's happening in the world. And we have another episode that'll be dropping later this week as we will be doing Canada in the Civil
We
War.
will.
Oh
Yep.
Canada, right?
Yep.
You know, the true Mary North and free. So we'll
Good
do
morning,
that. So
everybody. We got this Jeffrey, C. Jordan, Autumn, Bill is on here too.
well, that's cool. That's cool.
Oh, I think, oh, Getty's Gear's on here, I think.
Getty's Gear. We ran into one of them at the
I think it's
supermarket this
Gettysburg
morning.
addresses. I'm assuming that's Getty's Gear.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
not.
what
I'm
it
not
was.
sure.
Yep, yep. So Annabelle is in town. So we were talking to some people and having some fun with that. So we have to stumble over there at some point and go see. It's a great people watching weekend, to say the least. So we'll definitely go and do that. So what's new with you? You awake today? You
I'm awake. Yep.
how's your mood today? Good.
I'm
Okay.
awake.
Good.
Yep.
Outstanding. Outstanding.
Frank is on here. He said, let's wish a happy 204th birthday to fun lover DH Hill. And Frank is in Vicksburg
Yeah.
right now.
Oh, very cool.
That is so cool.
Frank gets around. He definitely gets
He
around.
does. No, he
Yeah.
likes his history stuff. He's a cool guy to
Yeah.
hang out with. He knows his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of DH Hill, I've started reading Dave Powell's 3 volumes about Chickamauga. So I'm on volume 1. And he gives an overview of the situation in the army, like the Union Army. Morning, Caleb. And he also gives the situation in Army of Tennessee, which is like led by Braxton Bragg. And I mean, I always knew it was messed up and full of drama, but he just like reiterates that even more.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about D.H. Hill, about how specifically mentioned South Mountain and how some people didn't think he did very good there. And that he was constantly causing drama. And one of the interesting things he said about
That is true, especially with old one James Longstreet there.
yes, and apparently Lee didn't like him either because so or he describes Lee as being kind of like the optimistic type, and D.H. Hill was like he's like Eeyore except on crack kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like he's like, oh, this is not gonna go well, blah blah blah. Like he's just such he apparently D.H. Hill was really negative. So he gets like shuffled around like everywhere. And then finally, before the Battle of Chickamauga, he ends up in the Western Theater out there. Um, and he's like, what do I say? He's the one that's found. They find him with Patrick Claiborne in the morning of September 19th, and they're like making bacon and eggs and stuff. And Bragg is like, did you not get my memo about going into battle? And they're like, no.
Well, I mean that's the whole thing. That's not unusual. But before we get started, since Getty's Gear is on, we got to give them a shout out, though, Mary. So we
Yes.
partook in yet another fantastic pair of cigars from Getty's Gear.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
with all the people in town, go see Getty's Gear, go see Carrie, Janet, and Kat. They'll take good care of you. Good coffee, good cigars,
Yeah.
good fun.
And
Now
they are
that's cool.
actually,
Now,
if you are in town, if you are in Gettysburg today, they are over at the Heritage Center because there's some vendors over there for Bike Week. So they are over there. So you can go say hi to them over there. Oh, Caleb said D.H. Hill's letters to his wife will give you severe anxiety and depression. It
yeah,
sounds like he was not an optimistic guy.
no, I mean, he probably really wasn't. But the thing about D.H. Hill was, I mean, he was kind of around for a while. North Carolinian. It's allegedly his copy of Law Sort of 191. You can still go see down at
Yep.
the UNC down
He
at Chapel Hill, and
was he brother-in-law with Gibbon?
was right. He was related to Gibbon, and so I mean, people think of D.H. Hill. Of course, you're going to think. I mean, I think of Antietam. Think of the Sunken Road, and you think of Sunken. Oh, look at keeping you awake, are we? Look at you waking.
God. Oh, Caleb did say, Darren, how about those socks?
They're never going to lose again, Mary. World Series is back on.
No, in the Guardians are going to win the World Series this
Oh
year.
God, yeah, they usually like to do every year. But for real though, as far as Hill goes, I mean, he's a guy who's an opinionated fella. He certainly
Mhm.
was, and he had issues with pretty much everybody. One of the smartest guys in the room, but he tends to be everywhere. And he's a guy who, again, had a personality conflict famously with James Longstreet at South Mountain. He did pretty well in Antietam for the most part, but the only problem is that putting people in the sunken road is great, but after a while, they put too many people in the road, and you couldn't move and couldn't maneuver,
Yeah.
and they couldn't fall back because of Tompkins Battery. Those 6 guns were firing upon them. You had enfilade fire, of course, from the great Francis Barlow, right?
Mhm.
So he put his men in a really really tough spot. Um, but he had his moments. He had his moments, no question about it.
Yeah. Jeffrey says their cigars are fantastic, meaning Getty's Gear
Best
cigars.
cigars in the world by far at Gettysburg. I've
Yeah.
told said this before. I'll say it again. I know a little something about cigars, man. As do many of my snotty friends back home. And I've brought Getty's Gear cigars back, and they've said these are guys who smoke Cubans and all these. The
Yeah.
Getty's Gear is the best they've ever had.
They
That's like
also have coffee as well as local honey too. Like they've got everything there. It's amazing spot. Definitely stop in there if you're in town.
mhm,
They're the best. Oh God,
absolutely.
I just kicked the cat accidentally.
Well, that's nice.
Stretching out. He was laying under the table. Poor Mosby.
That's what I hate you for a while now. No, but again,
Yep.
you come now. We're coming into that season now where it feels like things are winding down a little bit here, and then we're going to be able to continue some other stuff going forward as far
Yeah.
as these other battles. That's what's good about it. That's why it's always good to have
Good morning, Lisa.
to have Frank on, remind us of the anniversaries because it's
No,
good
it's
to
awesome. He does that.
it's good to know we keep an eye on that. But overall, to put a bow on Gettysburg this weekend, it was a good time. I thought that
Mhm.
saw a lot of friends down here. I think it's always a good time to come down here for the anniversary. There's a lot of good stuff going on, a lot of battle tours, a lot of our guide friends doing their thing, and our ranger friends doing their thing.
Yeah.
It was hot. I mean,
It wasn't that bad. It wasn't as bad as last year. Like last year was really, really bad. But we had one day last week where I took a couple days. I took July 3rd off of work and obviously had July 4th off, but July 3rd felt like autumn outside, like that
Mhm.
nice, cool, crisp morning. Like I actually needed a hoodie on when I was outside at like 5:30 in the morning reading. Um, James Mosby attack. Yeah.
We saw a Mosby bike gang last night, Mary.
Yeah, they're called Sons of Mosby. So we were trying to figure out who they were.
Well, we
We saw
looked them
the
up. We figured it
Yep.
out. So basically, it is a group, lost causey a little bit, but they're the ones who,
Yep.
if you head down to Warrenton, you go to his grave site. You think they always leave a lot of tokens on his grave. We didn't really talk to him too much, but it was cool to see the Mosby Sons of
Yep.
Mosby on the back of the jackets and stuff like that. I mean, especially we may have fun with the bike people. I mean, it's in the fact that it is good people watching. You definitely
Yep.
can see you can kind of trace the lineage and see what
Yep.
they're all about. I love it when the Freemasonry ones come down here because then I can
Yeah.
talk to them. I can feel like a badass talking to a motorcycle.
Ooh.
What's
Morning,
up, man?
Maria.
I need one of those Pee Wee Herman bikes and ride the chrome thing. Match me.
God. Maria's on here.
Oh, very cool, Maria. Ave Maria. No, but it's
So next weekend is what is it? It's the old timey baseball next weekend. So if you're in town for that, that is happening, which is awesome. We're gonna go to that.
Yeah, so I don't know if Gettysburg Eddies has something to do with that or they're one of the major sponsors, but you're going to have, I think it's like 30, 40, maybe even more baseball teams of the 1900s coming down here from
Yep.
all around the country. And they play the old timey New York rules. And it's free. And it's on Pumping
Yep.
Station Road where they filmed the movie Gettysburg. You can go down and see that stuff. But there's a lot of stuff going on in town. And now we're coming into, Brewfest is coming around the
Yep.
corner.
That's in
Um,
August, I think.
everything's happening here in the 717.
Yep, it
So,
is.
you know.
But yes, we were doing next week. Next week we are probably Thursday night because we have to record on Thursday. We're going to drop our episode about Canada in the Civil War. And obviously, we've been doing a little bit of research about that, going into it. And there is a Civil War memorial in Canada. It's up in Cornwall, Ontario, which is near the Quebec border. Um, and it was put up there, I want to think about 10 years ago. I've never seen it before, but it's very they recognize both sides and they have the names of people. They have names of the men who won the Medal of Honor that were Canadian.
Mhm.
And we've even found out that there was, I mean, obviously there was people from Canada fighting here at Gettysburg, but there was a guy in the 16th Maine that was likely killed on July 1st in the salient.
Yeah, Canada had a very, I mean, when you think of Canada and the Civil War, I mean, you're going to think of things like the Trent Affair. You're going to think of St. Albans raid. You're going to think about Halifax and that network of the boats.
In
You're going to
Quebec.
Quebec. You're going to think about Toronto. You're going to think of Montreal, Sarah Slater, people like that. But there's so much into it. And what's interesting too is Canada didn't even exist until 1867. So
No.
in a lot of the American Civil War had a lot to do with the creation of Canada.
Yep.
And then the fun didn't end there because you had a lot of American veterans of the Civil War join that Fenian Brotherhood after the war
Yep.
and go into Canada in the 1860s and later. So Canada's always kind of been there. Famously, it was more just a British province at that point.
Yep.
Territories, and so famously Lincoln said, one war at a time. After everything with the Trent Affair, I think for people who study the Civil War and especially international stuff, you have to know your Trent Affair. You have to
Mhm.
because it sets everything up. It just does everything diplomacy wise with the blockades, everything that
It's
happens.
so important for the Civil War. And like, I know there was someone that wrote the guide exam that was like, that's a trick question. It's like, no, it's not. That is something you legitimately need to know about
I
the
mean,
Civil
there's so
War.
many. The fact that Captain Wilkes, who you know, um, caught the envoys, was an uncle of John Wilkes Booth. There's a
Yeah.
connection with that too.
Hmm.
He brought the two Confederates up here to Massachusetts at Fort Warren, actually up to Massachusetts anymore. But again, there's so much into it, and you can look that Booth connection continues with Edward Doherty, right?
Yep.
The
And
16th
he's
New York.
buried and he's
He's
buried
buried.
in
He's buried in Arlington.
Arlington. He's from Ontario. And then we found out there's some guys that were in the 54th Mass, USCT guys that came down from Canada. Calvin mentions that there's lots of Canadians that fought in Michigan regiments as well as um, New York and Maine. So those kind of the border states are where they're coming down from.
Yeah.
What I didn't know and what I learned from the memorial from reading about the people on it is just how many fought for the Confederacy.
Well, yeah, a lot of them did, and a lot of them they basically spread themselves out. There was Union, there was Confederate, there was a whole bunch of them. You mentioned the 54th Mass, because of the movie Glory, it gives a perception that they were all Boston guys. There was very few Massachusetts natives in the 54th Mass. They came from everywhere,
Yeah,
um,
Canada.
and because they wanted people, free men obviously, but they wanted
Yeah,
educated. They wanted to put their best foot forward to show these military people that African Americans can fight. So and if somehow people take shots at Boston for that, like they couldn't put their own thing
yeah,
together, but that's just the reality of how they did it. And of course, the 55th Mass, who no one studies over at Camp Meade, right?
yeah. James said my ancestor was caught up in Fenian attacks in Manchester after the war. Maria mentions John Surratt fleeing to Montreal, and then Jeffrey says you guys have to make sure you ask to take turn at bat at the baseball festival. The team I play is going, but I couldn't make it this year.
Oh, I'll be like Manny Ramirez. I'll call my shot. Stand there and pimp it
Jeez.
after I hit it 500 feet.
But
That'd be
yeah,
cool.
the Canada thing is definitely very it's interesting. Um, just to see how many fought and just like the prominence they had, like someone like Edward Doherty. And then here in Gettysburg, you had two Canadian surgeons. One was over where with the Second Corps, and the other was with John Bell Hood's guys,
Yeah,
Solomon Secord.
Solomon Secor was over at the John Plank farm, and that's a fascinating story too, because this is a guy who came. He was a surgeon. He ended up fighting. He ended up
Yeah.
working. Um, and you know this better than I do, but didn't he end up in the South, like in Georgia
He
somewhere?
went down to the South for apparently health reasons.
Right.
It's kind of shady why he went down there, but he kind of gets caught up in everything. And because he's a surgeon, he gets basically goes to the Confederate Army. And there is he had anti-slavery views apparently, which is why it floors me that Kincardine removed the monument to him. Town of
Yeah.
Kincardine had a monument to him, and I was like, what, why?
That was
And the
part of
art,
the overreaction that took place in a lot of
oh, they
places.
had a total overreaction, and then they had to say, like, oh, but don't worry, we're not going to remove his grave. It's like, no, you can't remove his grave. Like,
No, you're not going to do that. I mean, again, like I get, don't agree with it, but I understand it, right? But at the end of the day, this is a guy who came down here, was over at the plank farm. He may
yeah,
have actually worked on
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 Hood.
on Hood because he was that type of person. You never know. It was Union and Confederates. It's just off Breams Hill, if you know the area.
Yeah,
We did a live on the counter march a few weeks ago, last week I guess it was. We
yeah.
drove right by it, and there was a lot of Union and Confederates who were there. And after that battle of Gettysburg, he says, "You know what? The hell with this. I'm going home. Screw you guys. I'm giving him right."
Yeah, he was like, no, you know what, I don't like what this cause is. And he became quite a prominent citizen in the town of
Right.
Kincardine, which is about 35 minutes north of where I grew up. And I didn't know about him until I was looking at Civil War monuments one time and found out, oh, there was this one to him. So I got to see it before they removed it. Um, but again, their reasons for removing it were just like, I didn't buy into the arguments. They were worried that people would start asking questions about him. And I'm like, well, it's a time to answer those questions. But two, this is a guy who was operating for 24 hours straight on Union and Confederate.
Oh, a lot of them were, but he was actually a legit, a legit surgeon. A lot of these guys were just deli guys,
Yeah.
and but he did his thing, and
Well, it's
um,
because they like to have the Canadian surgeons because they actually trained on cadavers, so they could do amputations really quick. And that's what this
yeah,
guy, the other guy, I can't, his name's escaping me, but he was with the Second Corps.
yeah,
Um, and then James asked, how many Grand Army of Republic posts were set up in Canada? I don't know. I'll have to look that up.
zero. It
Zero?
was an American entity only,
Oh, only okay.
created in 1866. So there was no, there just like there is no George Washington in the lodges. There is no
Oh,
GRA lodge in
well, as
Canada,
my friend
unfortunately.
explained to you, though, he said they do have a painting of George Washington. They just don't have it up. You walk in there and you see the Queen.
Yeah, but you know what though? I mean, it could be there could be GARs, but there's just not. It's
Mhm.
exclusively American, so that's the deal. So,
But there would
um,
have been Canadian members of it.
of course there are. There surely would have been. I mean, don't forget too. I mean, most even I think even today, like ridiculous, like isn't it like 75% of the population of Canada lives within 100 miles of the U.S.
Yep.
border or something like that. So
Yep.
even back then they probably all lived along the border because it's all Santa's workshop up there for the
Well,
most
yeah, and
part.
it's like, speaking of Michigan, Calvin mentioned there's a lot of guys from Michigan. That's where John Huff went to. Now, there
Right.
is some debate that John Huff might actually have been American. I've seen that before, but he is on the Canadian Civil War Memorial.
Now you can claim him. He's all yours.
Yeah.
One of the first drive-by
Shot Jeb
shootings in
Stuart.
American
Yep.
history. Ran by and shot him as he was running.
And then he got killed.
And he didn't make it.
No,
Yeah.
he died like a month and a half later, I think.
Yeah.
And he's buried in Armada, Michigan.
Okay. But there's a lot of it, and I think I haven't really delved too deeply into it yet. But I know understanding a lot of what happened, especially with the Canada was a British province. I'm not sure
Yep.
what the word province is right, but whatever they were. And England, obviously, despite the fact of neutrality, they did not have any desire for the American democratic system to work. They wanted to keep monarchy.
Yeah.
So it was in their interest for the South to win. So they can come back and say, see, this is what you want. Look what you get. You got
Yeah.
civil war. You've got all kinds of stuff, but it didn't work out for them. But after the war though, and when they kind of formed themselves, they definitely
Well, because we were on the chopping block and then we were
yeah.
like, homie, don't play that. Like, you're not
You
doing
could have
that in 1860.
United States could have taken Canada way back in
Yeah.
1865, 66. Imagine that.
That's what they were talking about, was doing that just for, what was it, for paying back for all the money in the blockade or something, or the money lost?
Yeah, they wanted to punish England. They said, you you're having ships built in Liverpool and you're sending warships out to sea,
Mhm.
and so you're violating neutrality. So we think you owe us some reparations. And they said, we said, how about Canada? And they said, how about no? And I think they settled on $20 million.
Yep. How about Canada? How about no? And then we
Yeah.
became a country. The other thing too that's really interesting is, so my hometown, and I have to look this up, but I learned this from, I was on a live stream that the local museum in my hometown does really, really good live streams. And they did
Mhm.
one about this freed they were escaped slaves, African Americans, and they lived in the area for a while. But what she also talked about was the attitude my town had towards the Lincoln assassination, and how they talked about John Wilkes Booth. They talked about him as if he were a martyr. So interesting
A lot of places in
slant.
the South, a lot of
But it
places
was,
South too. Yeah.
but that was my hometown. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
Canada. And that was really interesting to see that that was the slant that my hometown took on, that was that making Booth out to be a martyr. And I think,
Just remember that at the time now, Lincoln at the time internationally, this is a guy who they blame for the Trent affair,
yeah,
right? So a lot of the stuff they did. They also the fact that the United States was catching up to England pretty quickly with the Navy, and they didn't
yeah,
like that over there in England, right?
no,
So he was somebody who would not have been a fan favorite. They would not have been coming to the Lincoln Symposium in Gettysburg
yeah.
with the rest of the Lincoln people, which you were
Can you
one
imagine?
of. You even got your name in a book recently
I
for being
did,
a Lincoln
yes.
person. Yeah.
Yes, we have actually just a quick shout out to Bjorn and to our friend Stacy. So it is sort of a Civil War book, but it's called Loving Lincoln, Personal History of the Women Who Shaped Lincoln's Life and Legacy. It is available from Abraham Lincoln Bookshop. So you can get it there. She did a
Yeah.
really great live stream. She knows her stuff about Mary Lincoln. Stacy's also written a really great biography about Mary Lincoln as well. So that's pretty cool. So you can get that book on Abraham Lincoln Bookshop. Caleb said, I correspond with a fellow who resides in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. That is such a, yeah. And he said, say what you want, but we don't have cool names like that for our towns. Moose Jaw.
Thunder Bay.
What? Under Bay? Thunder Bay? Thunder Bay.
That's how you crazy Canadians pronounce it.
What
But
you
no,
call it? Winder?
Winder, Ontario. Yeah, but Canada is important though, and it's just people think of England primarily. You think of France a little bit, Napoleon,
Yeah.
um, his disciples after that, but for the most part, Canada was a big part of it. I mean, think about how
Yeah.
instrumental Canada was, and it became somewhat of a launching pad for a lot of what they did. I mean, the St. Albans raid. We're going to do an episode on St. Albans,
Yeah.
and that's a fascinating one. People debate what was the furthest north battle in the Civil War. Obviously, it's got to be that. I mean, it wasn't as
Yeah.
much of, it wasn't like a Battle of Gettysburg or Antietam or anything, but it's still coming over the border, stealing a whole bunch of money from a lot of different banks. Sarah Slater, the spy's got the veiled lady's got her hands all over that. But again, you can see why Lincoln would probably have issues with Canada, but at the same
Yeah.
time, there was nothing he could do about it. There was absolutely nothing he could do about it. But at the end of the day, it helped formulate in 1867 the country of Canada. Although you guys are still tied to the crown. I don't know how
We
that's
are.
still
Yep.
happens.
Yeah. We still obviously have ties to the crown. We have King Charles on our money. I think he's on the money now. I would imagine the mint is printing him on the money
Charles in
now.
charge.
Yep. Yep. And that was the first time ever when we were back in Canada for Remembrance Day 3 years ago, on November 11th. That was the first time I'd ever heard it as God Save the King. My whole life it had been God Save the Queen.
Well, Elizabeth was queen for forever.
Yeah. Well, what's
you know?
interesting is my dad, when he was born, he was born in England and came over to Canada when he was like 9 months old. But like he had the king for a while and then he had the queen. So he's gone back to God Save the King again.
Yeah,
Um,
well, I mean, it definitely is strange as an American going up there and hearing all that the stuff, especially towards royalty. Because where I'm from, Mary, the city I was raised, we don't like them royals too much.
yeah,
They piss us off a lot, you know. So we, so anything, any sort of king, any sort of queen, any kind of royalty never flew. But it was definitely
yeah,
interesting. It's definitely fascinating to see. But again, it's a huge part of the history of the Civil War that people don't really think about.
yeah.
And so
And
we'll do the
that's,
episode next week on and talk more in detail. We're going to talk about the big picture a little bit. And then we're each going to talk about a couple of individuals who are instrumental.
yeah,
Guys like Doherty, guys like Secord, guys like Huff, people like that to talk about how impactful it was. Because you had people, obviously, everybody knows the Germans came over here, Carl Schurz, everybody knows the Irish, Francis Marr, they came over
yeah.
here to fight. But you don't think about the Canadians. You really don't.
No, no. And the other interesting thing too is like, so I've talked about this before, but Sherman stayed in my hometown. We found the house that he stayed at, but there was also, I think, wasn't it a Confederate general that spent
What?
summers there?
Yeah,
Sherman's friend, he was a Confederate officer.
they would sit there and they're all together, probably looking out at the water.
Yeah, like 'cause Sherman went and stayed with this Confederate guy at the house, and the house overlooked Lake Huron. It's in great location. Unfortunately, the guy that owns it now is nuts. But
Yeah.
um, anyway, the other thing too is they had there's like these little cannons set up overlooking the lake. And my grandmother always told me, because I asked her, why are the cannons there? And she said, those are to keep the Fenians out.
Yeah. Well, it was a big deal too. I always find it fascinating. I know it goes off the Civil War trail a little bit. I always find it fascinating that every year England bills the city of Boston for the tea from
Yeah.
the Boston Tea Party, and it's
And
worth
every year you
millions.
guys are like, no.
Every year they send it back and say no, but every year England consistently bills them, and it's one of those fun little things back and forth that England and the city do. But they receive a bill every year, and it's got to be tens of millions of dollars now. And of course, the city's like, they don't do it. But it's we went to the 250th Boston Tea Party a couple of years ago,
Mhm.
remember? And they talked about that. Um, and it's fun. It's a fun history. But there's actually one of the original boxes of the tea that's still they have in a museum at the Boston Tea Party
That's
Museum.
cool.
How much
Um,
that'd be worth? That was rolling, just flowing down the through the Boston Harbor, and I would love to get one of those.
yeah.
You know,
Jeffrey also mentions that they stationed troops at Fort Niagara along the border in case of British Canadian intervention on behalf of the Confederacy.
you guys better keep your eyes straight ahead.
Oh, they had forts there from 1812. That's what they were using.
Oh, I know. But
James said, wait until we demand the rent back.
well, you guys set the Spice Girls over, so we're going to call it even. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But it'll be fun to talk about. It's always fun to talk about these things, and we'll get some other things we're going to be talking about here pretty soon. Coming off of the Barlow episode we did.
Yeah.
And I know we're going to be doing one on Thomas.
Yep.
No,
Or
no,
no,
McPherson.
McPherson.
Yeah.
McPherson.
Sometimes I don't pay attention.
No, we thought that with you know upcoming anniversary of the Battle of Atlanta in August, we're going to do an episode about James McPherson.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've done a few episodes recently about generals that fought in the Eastern Theater, Gibbon and Barlow, and we wanted to get back to the Western Theater again too and give them some love. So we thought McPherson would be a great episode to do.
Yeah, we got some fun stuff coming up too. We're going to be joining the other Darren, the British Darren,
Yes.
on his Civil War UK podcast, talking about
Yep.
Chickamauga in a couple. We'll record that here, I think in September.
Yeah.
We'll be seeing those guys down at the Emerging Civil War Symposium.
Yeah.
In August too. So there's a lot of good stuff going. It's always fun to get a different perspective of people in different countries about the American Civil War. For some reason, obviously James is on here. He's England, and we have Ryan from Ireland who pops in from time to time.
Well, he's from England. He's Irish, but he's
yeah, right. But it's always fascinating to me how people like Darren, for example, the other Darren, two R's and an E, right?
yeah.
How it's so fascinating. Because I mean, I guess people, I pretty much have studied almost everything, but the Civil War is the one that never really resonated with me. I can't imagine studying the German Civil War or anything like that because it just doesn't
No.
interest me. So
I mean,
it's always fascinating to do that, you know.
even the War of 1812, we don't really learn about it in Canadian schools at all. Um, and I'm not that interested in it. I'm interested in the Rev War, but from the political standpoint. So
Mhm.
like, um, Jefferson and Washington, and as much as I don't like him, Hamilton, I can't stand Hamilton. I love the musical, can't stand the guy.
Oh, yeah. Well, but it's neat to be able to do that though, and because and you have to be really into it to study another country's civil wars because they've had their own. They've you have the Roundheads and all that stuff, what they had back in the day. They've had that's a country just filled with war and filled with
Yeah,
history, and the sun never sets in the British Empire.
no, British
I think that
Empire.
still applies actually. The British Empire. So they have their own history. So it always fascinates me how somebody would kind of dress up in the Union uniform and go through these Civil War things and study so much about it, which is great.
Yeah.
It's one of those things.
Thomas Carroll's on here. We were on his podcast for the
Yes,
anniversary.
yes,
That was fun.
yeah. Tom's a good guy, so definitely check him out. That's a lot of fun doing that. And yeah, he's a Pittsburgh guy. It's nice, and he's obviously part of the Pennsylvania history here, and it's good to have a local here talking about it. Well, you are tired. Look at you. You just
Whatever.
boring the
So Frank says, as a Californian with no ancestor ties to American history in the 1800s, studying the war almost feels like a foreign study to me as well. It's kind of the same for me because I mean, there were Finchers who fought in the war, but I don't know how they're related to me. They primarily fought in the Confederacy, because there's a lot of Finchers that still live in the South. Found a guy from the 8th Texas, and I think it was James who told me that he went and did a little bit of research, and he found out that the guy died of disease before even getting into battle.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you're the greatest example of all studying it. You grew up in Canada and you into the Civil War, and that was always your jam too. So
Yep.
everybody has their own thing. I mean, I grew up in Boston, didn't care less about the Rev War, so it's the
The
same thing
amount
for
of
me.
guilt tripping I've got from some fellow Canadians over not knowing the history of my own country is ludicrous. Like, it's like they'll be like, why don't you know about your own country? It's like, well, you know what? It didn't interest me as a 6-year-old. I'm sorry, it didn't. Like, and it stuck with me. I don't care. Like, love what you love. Like, don't slam people if they don't, like it obviously has ties to my country.
Well, I mean, everything affects in every aspect is going to affect every country. If you think about it. The Civil War trickled down. I mean,
Yeah.
it went on and on and on, and because the Union did win, and it kept that democracy example together, it began that trickling effect. The 20th century, for the most part, was an entire century of wars
Yeah.
trying to find something to replace monarchy. And if the Civil War went the other way, which it very well could have, it would be interesting to see how that might have played itself out,
Um,
especially on the international scale too.
so you get to tell your story right now because Grant wants to know if you had ancestors in the war.
Oh, I did. One specifically, Elihu T. French was his name. He originally was from New Hampshire, and he enlisted and he mustered out, but he wanted to go back into the war again. And they told him, "Nope, we don't need any. We're full." So he moved to Brookline, Massachusetts, where he joined part of a heavy artillery group, and he found himself getting captured in Virginia, and he was sent to Andersonville, and he survived Andersonville, and he was part of the last group of Andersonville. And so when they released them, he was under the impression that he was going back home to Massachusetts, but they lied to him, and they put him on a train, sent him to Florence Stockade in South Carolina. So he wasn't going home; he was getting switched in prisons.
Yeah.
So he ended up going there, where he ultimately died of disease and starvation. He's buried as an unknown in Florence, South Carolina, which I've been to. So yeah, so that's been my family history, and it's funny because um, I wasn't aware of his story until relatively recently, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Didn't your dad find out about it?
Well, there was a guy back in Massachusetts. His name was Ken, and he reached out to me and said, he reached out to my father and he said, I'm a historian for the town of Brookline, and his name is on the monument for Brookline, who died in the
Yeah.
Civil War. And I got traced him down to your father, And I called him and he goes, my father doesn't know shit about the Civil War. So he's
Yeah.
like, talk to my kid. He's crazy about it. So he ended up reaching out to me and I got to know him a little bit. And he sent me all these documentations. So that's how it was for me. So it was definitely a personal story. And it's funny how in his name mistakenly ended up in a monument in Massachusetts,
Yeah.
another town which is not far from where we used to live in Plymouth. But that's my family history. I'm sure there might be other ones too, but that's the one that I know for sure. So it's fascinating too. And his relative, um, his uncle is the one who did the statue of the Lincoln Memorial.
Yeah.
So I'm
And the other
related.
guy was the one that was in Congress, right?
Right. So I'm from an illustrious military family.
It goes to Sickles' legs and Canadian history, maple syrup, and never winning another Lord Stanley's Cup.
That is true. That is true. Class of
We are cursed.
1993. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Maple Leafs.
As long as the Maple Leafs don't win it.
Oh yeah. That's the whole thing too. But it is nice, and that's how I think most people got into the Civil War. I think is looking at their own family history, because at the end of the day, if you look at it, you really look at it, it's a personal war that wasn't that long ago. So if your generation's here, if you've been here for, your family for X amount of years, you probably have someone who fought in it. You have 3 million people who fought in the Civil War.
Yeah.
Across the entire country. And a lot of people have relatives who fought in the North and the South. My father used to tell me, our family is so screwed up, we would have fought in the West. That's what he used to always say about it. But everyone's got a family history, and that's what makes the Civil War so personal and so easy to study. Is you can find out, your relative was in the Second Mass Heavy Artillery, and you can find out who he was with, and everyone has it. We do these lives, we bump into people out the bars and battlefields and stuff. And they're always telling us about their relative fought for the 4th Texas, for the 1st Mississippi, for the 16th Michigan, and just hearing their stories. And when you go to the battlefields and you see people, they tend to resonate towards those monuments or where they're from, and hear and talk about it. I was in Antietam a couple of weeks ago, and this woman came up to me. I was at the Dunker Church, and she came up to me and started telling me about her relative who fought with this X regiment. And she had all these documents and these from his wartime, and I didn't have the heart to tell her that the regiment wasn't in Antietam. I kept that quiet.
Yeah.
But that's how people are. They follow their family history, which is always fascinating.
Yeah. No, it's very cool. Grant mentions that Confederate raiders came here to, he's from Australia, and our economy was boosted by England wanting our cotton now that the South wasn't a source.
No, absolutely. You can see that trickle effect and how it trickled down in the entire world.
Yep.
I mean, cotton was the oil of the 19th century.
Yep.
It really, really was. And if you couldn't get the cotton, you had to find something else. You had to find a different source of it.
And my hometown in Goderich would have had a vested interest in the Civil War because they are a port. They would have had ships likely coming from the South, bringing them cotton.
Mm-hmm.
So that's likely why they took the view they did on the war.
Mm-hmm.
And why it was it was a place where they came
economics.
after.
It's all economics. There are books you can read. Robert, what's his last name? Milroy. We had on the podcast about 6 months ago. We talked about the economics of slavery in the South.
Oh yes, I know who you mean. Yeah, Colby, Robert Colby.
Robert Colby. I don't tired blanking his name, but he wrote a book which is absolutely fascinating, where he talked about the impact of slavery and cotton economically in the South.
Yeah,
and how important it was. And he puts it almost in a modern day finance book. So if you studied finance in school, you talk about commodities and in trading, and he presents it that way, and you look at it and you realize how important that whole aspect was.
Yeah.
It absolutely was. I mean, you think about the fact that a lot of different ways, maybe cotton was the cars and slaves was the gas. Mm-hmm. The ways you can play, how he played it out like that, but economically how important it was. And how big cotton actually was. Cotton was everything.
Oh, it was King Cotton, right? Was what it was called.
That's the phrase I'm inventing. Cotton is king.
I'm
going to claim that. That's me who said
that. Another thing I just thought of to mention too, and this is like going into, we're now post Battle of Gettysburg, but I'm going to post this on my Howard history face. I created a Facebook page for General Howard because of all the stuff I've been
I
finding.
heard something about that.
Yes. So anyway, there's some letters I'm going to post that he's writing to either his wife or his mother because he too wrote to his mother. Um, and anyway, there's this one letter that I found that um, he said, is it von Steinwehr or von Gilsa? But one of them, he wrote his wife and said, wherever I go, uh, von Steinwehr wants to go with me. And
Mhm.
he specifically mentions the Second Corps.
Yeah.
So I think there was talk of Howard taking over the Second Corps after Gettysburg.
Yeah, we talked about that. And in those letters, it's interesting to see how they ended up obviously going out with the 12th Corps out
Yeah.
west, but he was maintaining the 11th Corps. But there was a lot of talk about that.
But the other thing
Um,
that was going to happen too is they were going to basically break up the 11th Corps. Um, and they were going to send Schurz to the Valley.
mhm.
He
Yeah,
was,
Carl Schurzler Valley would have been fascinating because you went through a cavalcade of clowns. I don't mean the Rosewoods
yeah,
clown, I mean different clowns. Going through the valley for Franz Siegel and David Hunter. It really wasn't until Sheridan came along that they finally got their stuff
yeah,
together in the valley. But obviously, you can't forget, about the
yeah.
great Nathaniel Banks, of course. But you saw the issues that they had. How Schurz would have handled that? I don't know. I mean, he might have
Schurz
been,
was good.
but he wasn't going to be as much as we have fun with Sheridan. Sheridan was the man in the valley.
Oh
He
yeah,
was.
absolutely he was, and he was the right guy for the job when he finally got there. But the other thing too, like, so not only is Howard slated to go to the Second Corps, what would that have done when Hancock's like, oh hey, I'm coming back? Like,
Well, it's interesting how they would. I mean, he would have to wait for an opening. Who knows what would
yep,
happen to him? You
that
know.
would have been, would he have got sent out west? Maybe, who knows? But it's not too long after Howard writes that letter to his wife that he's writing her and saying, I've been called to Washington, I'm going out west.
Yeah. Well, Howard. I mean, Hancock was never the same after Gettysburg. He wasn't. I
No,
mean, he never recovered. I mean, look, it's tough to take a junk shot, survive that,
yeah.
and then never be the same.
No,
You know.
he never was. And the thing too is like even Pickett's charge, it's Webb. It's not
Yeah.
Hancock's
Yeah.
wounded, and not to discredit Hancock or anything like that, but by the time like Webb is the one that gets the full brunt of it.
Well, Webb talks a lot about the fact he's like, um, when it was really getting hot and heavy at the angle,
Yep.
with the copse of trees is him not knowing where Gibbon was or where Hancock was because they were both
Yep.
wounded already. They
Yep.
they both exited the dance floor relatively early.
Yep.
So I know the movie makes it sound like Hancock was the hero of the angle, the hero of it, blah blah blah. It was really Webb. It really really was. But again, Webb wasn't in the movie either. I don't think he
No,
was. Maybe
no,
he
he
had a quick
wasn't.
little cameo, but again, that's the misconception history comes in,
Yeah.
where people like Chamberlain, where people like Armistead, where people like Hancock get an elevated level historically that tends to stick, right? So now you talk to people, they think that this person is the greatest thing in the world, and they're kind of skewed a little by the book or the movie.
Yeah.
Whereas if you get into the history of it a little bit, there's a lot more people that make the machine go, right?
Yeah.
And you could certainly see that here. I mean, there's no question.
Oh no, and,
Um,
and like you get out of Gettysburg, Jeffrey says he agrees with you about Webb.
I mean, his Philadelphia Brigade. Okay, when you look at the fact of where they were and what they did, um, it's hard to imagine a more better guy being at the best. Right guy, right time
Mhm.
is Alexander Webb. Mean,
Yep.
that type of guy, good leader. Basically following in the footsteps of a Gibbon type thing. That type of cut from the
Yep.
same cloth, and he is the one who most people, I should say most people, but a lot of people, when they see their boss go down, their boss's boss go down, and now they're in
Yep.
charge, they peed on their leg. You
Yep.
see it throughout the war, every war. This is a guy who kept his cool. And again, he had other men with him. He had other troops
Yep.
behind him. He had the Garibaldi Guard come over from Lamb Willard's brigade. He had the
Mhm.
First Delaware. You had a lot of different places, regiments that were not part of his brigade. But it's tough to imagine a more baller guy
Oh
in
yeah.
that spot. Now, again, if the Confederates did break through, and they did, Armistead did get through. If they did wash through them, the Sixth Corps was there. It wasn't going to last too long.
No.
But I think a lot of credit is unnecessarily given to Hancock here,
Yes.
right? And a
Yeah.
little bit of Gibbon too, but not so much. Mostly Hancock. And again, that's primarily because of the movie Gettysburg. To make it sound like I'll not leave the battlefield, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
And I'm not minimizing Hancock overall, but I'm saying as far as Gettysburg goes, he's played out a little more important than
Yep.
he really, really was.
Yep.
Right.
And Caleb mentions Ream Station Deep Bottom anniversary coming up in August, not Hancock's finest moment.
No, and again, that was post Gettysburg, so he lost the fastball. This is Willie
Yep.
Mays on the Mets here. That's who he was, right? Michael Jordan on the Washington Wizards. That's who he was by the time he got to Ream Station, and he got pantsed, by AP Hill.
Yep.
Again, that was a situation where it was bad intel. They just didn't. There wasn't that Second Corps was a ghost of themselves. It was like the Army of Tennessee post Nashville. They were just a ghost of themselves. He probably never should have came back, in my opinion, as Hancock.
No.
Or taken a different position.
Taking a desk job.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that he sucks either, but I think that there is a definite distinction. When you look, he kind of rose to prominence at the Sunken Road at Antietam.
Yeah.
He comes over from the Sixth Corps, he becomes a division commander after Israel Richardson goes down. And he kind of becomes a tough guy at that point. And he grows. After Chancellorsville, he ends up being a corps commander. And he gets wounded at Gettysburg on the very next battle. So he was the junior corps commander.
Yep. He's
one
of the lowest ranking, he's very junior.
As far as it's coming, I'm not sure when he got a star compared to this guy and that guy. But I mean, I'm talking as far as being corps commander.
Well, again, Howard was the Howard. So Slocum was highest ranking in Army of Potomac. Mm-hmm. And I think after that it was Doubleday.
I'm not sure. That's the problem you run into is this guy gets his brigadier star on July 2nd of 1862. This guy gets it on July 3rd. And they have a pissing contest over that. I know Howard and Sigel had a big deal about that. As far as who got it. But
Howard felt that when Sickles got the Third Corps, Howard was like, what the hell? I am this level of rank and I'm also like a professional soldier kind of thing. Why aren't you giving me, I want a corps? And Sigel just happened to take his ball and go. And that's why why Howard got the 11th Corps around the time of Fredericksburg. Trevor's got a question. Do y'all think that on day 2 Gettysburg, that if Longstreet's echelon attacked on the Union left side would have attacked left to right instead of right, would it work better if he'd attacked differently?
No, I mean, they tried that. I mean, the initial part of the attack was supposed to start at Culp's Hill, right? That's where it was supposed to go. And it just didn't work out the way. And a lot of it goes back to Brinkerhoff Ridge that came later on in the day. But the problem with Gettysburg, the echelon attack, there's really two things. The first thing was the fact they started so late. And we talked about we did the counter march. We did that whole thing. And everything was going well for the most part. They finally get going somewhere around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right?
Yeah.
They're going to start to attack and they're going to work their way down. Sickles is going to move out, and it is going to put a cramp in the dick of the Confederacy. It is, because they were not prepared for that. They were going to find the Union left, and they were going to use the Emmitsburg Road and basically roll them up as a blanket and push their way down. And that's how it was supposed to go. But now when Longstreet gets up there and he sees Sickles, he's got to change his plan.
Yeah.
Now he's going to send Hood's guys around, and he's going to begin to work his way that way. And it almost works, but the problem you run into is they ran out of guys. So when you're starting to work down that echelon attack, ultimately what happens is when you get to, for the most part, when you get to Richard Anderson's guys, and you're working with Wilcox, and Ambrose Wright's going to get there. But basically, you've got David Lang's Floridians, you've got Lang's, you've got Posey's Virginians, and those guys. You run out of guys. Ambrose Wright's Georgians break through the line, and Carnot Posey's supposed to be on his left. He doesn't even move. David Lang on his right falls back, and he does it. So he's up there by himself. If they had that one more brigade just one more, I think they would have broken
Yeah.
through. So I think the way they handled it was the right way. They just ran out of guys
Yeah.
because and Ambrose Wright almost immediately after that attack, when he got forced back, was livid at David Lang. He wanted him court-martialed. He said, I looked to my
Mhm.
right and you would fall him back. He's like, well, I got fallen back because, the 19th Maine pushed me back and, all that stuff. But really, Posey should have been on his left-hand side, should have been following him up because
Yeah.
that echelon finally breaks through at the angle, right? And now you got no support. And so he's going to be pissed off. He's got that mullet flowing. You can only imagine
Mullet.
how he did. And he was livid. And he was writing Richard Anderson. He's another one because allegedly
Yeah.
Richard Heron Anderson wasn't even up the front. He was allegedly in the back getting banged up at a picnic during
God.
this. And people debate that, but that's what people say. So
Mhm.
long answer to a short question. I don't think it would have made a difference. I think because that would have involved street fighting and that would have
Yeah.
involved getting Culp's Hill. They didn't get Culp's Hill, so it really had to go the other side.
Yeah.
But they were that close. That's why Pickett's
Mhm.
charge happened the next day
Yeah.
because they saw they had the breakthrough.
Yeah. No, the interesting thing too is like now you're getting into the anniversary of the retreat from Gettysburg, which we went to one of the sites last week. We went
Yeah.
on July 4th, which is really cool. And tomorrow we're gonna try and get to where is it? Falling Waters?
Yeah, I think we're gonna go to. Yeah, I think we'll head down to Williamsport. Maybe we'll do Billy Mahone, not Posey. I
Okay.
misspoke. It was Mahone. It was Mahone. Posey was he didn't come either. He had Posey Mississippi's, but it was Mahone's Virginians that I knew didn't sound right. That he was pissed off at. But anyway, yeah. So we'll head down to Williamsport. I think we're gonna go in tomorrow, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and then we'll figure that out.
Yeah, because we're going to Antietam tomorrow too.
Yeah, I'm gonna do Antietam tomorrow, and then we'll figure something out. It'd be
Mhm.
nice to get out of here and get away from the motorcycles for a few days. I think they'll leave tomorrow anyway.
They do.
Yep, they fly
Yeah.
away like it never
Bike
happened.
week is over as of tomorrow.
That's true. That's true.
Um, but anyway, getting back to this whole like, so Howard gets shipped out west, and finds out rather abruptly, and he goes to see Abraham Lincoln. And when he meets with Lincoln, Lincoln's got this really great map of like Tennessee and Georgia and all that, and Howard points it out, and Howard had this map and it wasn't as good. So Lincoln's like, oh, well, here, you take mine. And then the other thing Lincoln said to him is, the people of Middle Tennessee, they're Union. And he told Howard, he's like, I want to see something done there after the war as far as schools are concerned. And that is why Lincoln Memorial University was co-founded by Oliver Otis Howard. That was a promise he made to Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, no, you see how the war affected these different things. We were down in Washington last week, and we were right by Howard University. We were all
Yep.
excited.
Oh, I know. I was like, oh, there it is. And so many people don't know that he's the founder. When I mention, I'll say like, well, do you know Howard University? Like, oh yeah, well, that's the founder of it. The other interesting thing about Howard, speaking of like rank and commanding armies and stuff that we were talking about a few minutes ago, the one thing that I've always found kind of sad about him, and I often wonder how he felt about this, is he is the last general who commanded an army in the Civil War to die.
I imagine if he, I don't know how much he thought about it, but if he
But
did,
imagine you suddenly realize the guy before you dies, whoever that was. I want to find out who the second to last one was. And then Howard's like, I'm all that's left.
yeah, I'm sure it
I'm
was,
the only one.
knowing him, he was probably like, woohoo, suckers.
Probably not.
You know,
But it's just, I don't know. I've always found that just how does it feel when you're the last, when there's no one else left to
well,
talk
you
to?
saw that a lot with the regiments when they go
Yeah.
back for their anniversaries, and they were the last people in their company
Yeah.
alive. Like you saw. I mean, obviously, every single regiment had a last survivor. Every single one.
Yeah.
By definition, they did. So I'm sure it got hard when you're starting to go to these reunions and there's less people. Then finally, you realize you're the last one left.
But there's this camaraderie, this stuff that you go through together. And I experienced this, not the same thing, but I experienced during COVID. One of my closest friends, Alex, he and I met because we worked together during COVID. We literally have nothing in common other than going through COVID and working together.
Mhm.
but we can sit and talk for like hours. And I used to, when I lived back in Canada, I used to go out with him and his now wife, Becky, and we would just have such a great time. And there's this kind of this shared thing that you go through, this event or whatever. And, you know, you look at Howard, when he lived in New York City, he would often go to the opera or to the theater with Sherman and Slocum. And you know, there was some level of comfort with that because you couldn't ask for two more opposite people in the world than William Sherman and Oliver Otis Howard.
Mm-hmm.
Politically, how they feel about African Americans, all of that. But Sherman always insisted that Howard sat on his right and Slocum on his left because of the march.
Well, the march was obviously Sherman's. That was his big moment. I mean,
Yeah. And
we've
he
some.
had like, I think he saw those two as being they were the two that executed it. They were the ones that he trusted the most with that.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about Sherman's march, and it's probably it's some of the overrated side historically. This is another book, Gone with the Wind, really brought that one out. But I
Yeah.
think again, it's important, but I think it's people look at that as one of the pivotal must-have type things. Don't forget, he never even made it to Grant. He made it as far as North Carolina, and Grant said, "You know what? We're good. We got this.
Yeah.
We got
He's
it."
like, no, no, I got this.
Well, he wanted the AOP. He wanted me to get credit for it. He didn't
Yep.
want Sherman. So it's fascinating that you're kind of peas in a pod with Sherman and Grant. But when it came down to it, I don't know if he didn't want Sherman to get credit for for catching Lee, but he wanted Meade to share in this, and he told him to stay where he was. Obviously, he ended up getting Johnson later on.
Yeah.
But it's just funny how things play out sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. They it's just so interesting to me that like, I mean, especially like when Howard got the appointment at West Point to be, who was at the head honcho there, that Sherman was against it because of his views on African Americans.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people have this views. I mean, politics is you could have good friends on different sides
Yep.
politically, and at some point it's going to come out in some aspect. Doesn't mean you're not going to be friends with them, but at some point there's going to be some conversation about it that you'll never agree with and never cross that bridge with. That's okay.
Yep.
That's just the way life is.
But
But I think that
again,
was,
like complete opposites of friends. And there was a person who sent us a paper that they wrote a few years ago. I still have it. And it was about the friendship of Howard and Sherman because it was so unlikely that you have this Christian guy and this guy who's very not religious, not at all an abolitionist, and they have this unlikely friendship and they're partners together too in this,
Mhm,
and that Howard is named the guy that if something happens to Sherman on the march, he is the one that is going to take over.
mhm. Oh
And
yeah.
Sherman wrote him that letter when he went out west. I'll have to post that on my Howard page at some point too. Um, Basically welcoming Howard and saying, look, I understand what has happened to you, but just know I am honored that you are part of this now with us.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is that band of brothers concept. You could have completely different personalities, but you have that
But yeah, look at
shared.
Nixon and Nixon Winters.
Oh yeah, from Band of Brothers. Yeah, right. But I'm saying that you could have that camaraderie, that
Yeah,
common experience that they had, being knowing that they experience the same exact things, and so you could have the completely different personalities.
yeah.
You could be like Pickett's Mill, for example. Definitely not a good moment for Howard, not a good moment for
No.
Sherman. Just like Kennesaw, not a good moment for Howard, not a good moment for Sherman. But at the same time, they're different people, but they're gonna maintain faith in each other.
Yeah, and as James says, people are talking about this. It's this Ghost mentions, bonding, and Estella mentions keeping the friendships after the war, and James said the silent understanding. I can tell you the one person that Howard was not hanging out with after the war was Jefferson C. Davis.
No, there are people who just look. No one gets along with everybody. I'm sure he was cordial with
Oh
him.
yeah,
I
he
mean,
didn't like him though.
but you saw that on both sides. I mean, Robert E. Lee never forgave George Pickett and vice versa.
Yeah, and look at
And
John Mosby.
John Mosby tried to be the peace broker between the two, and that blew up in his face.
Yeah,
Um, and John Mosby pissed a lot of people off in Virginia when he became basically turned Republican and became supporting Grant. Um, so you can see how you can have a close brotherhood, and sometimes that political divide is too
Yeah.
much to overcome. Mosby came around, and he's obviously a hero in Virginia, but there was a time when he was chased out of Virginia. He was, they ran him out on a rail.
Oh yeah. He couldn't
Right?
practice law there anymore. And it was because
Right.
of how he was like, you know what? It's over. Let's move on. We have to be friends with these guys. The other friendship too is between Sickles and Longstreet.
Yeah, and that's a fun story too. I mean, Sickles and Longstreet, that story down in New Orleans, and they're walking.
Each other back and forth to their
It's funny. And you say what you will about Sickles, but the dude had stones.
oh yeah.
they're at a reunion, a Confederate reunion in New Orleans, and Sickles shows up, and he's with Longstreet. Sickles, he gets on his chair. Must have been helped up because of the leg, and he sings the Star Spangled Banner to all these Confederate veterans. And that must just imagine. And then they go out and they get banged up at the bar. And they're sitting down, and
Yeah.
Longstreet says, "I'm going to walk you back to your hotel. You're too drunk to get by yourself." They walk back to Sickles' hotel, and Longstreet's like, "Okay, I'm going to head back." He's like, "No, no, no, you're too drunk. I'm going to walk you back to your hotel now."
Yeah.
And they're going back and forth the streets of New Orleans. And just imagine how hilarious that must have been.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can make definitely strange bedfellows, and that's a big reason why people focus on Sickles now in a lot of cases, because Longstreet was a big proponent of Sickles' move out to the Peach Orchard,
Yeah.
saying how it disrupted his attack and blah blah blah.
Yep.
And who knows if it's true or not? I mean, it definitely dented it, but at the same time, is a Longstreet kind of talking about his friend to help promote him, because Sickles was, they call him the American scoundrel, right? He
Yeah.
was stealing money, and he was,
Oh,
you know,
there was a person on like Twitter talking about how he like disobeyed orders and he should have been court-martialed. And I'm like, dude, stop.
no, and that, look, I get on that. You're going to get that because there are people who are polarizing one way or the other for this. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, Longstreet and Sickles were friends after the war, and Longstreet did everything he could to kind of, pump his tires a little bit. This is while, $20,000 is disappearing from a fund that Sickles is in charge of. I mean, he's trying to hook up with, all these different people
Yeah.
overseas, and so his reputation was sullied, to say the least. So here's Longstreet saying, but this is the guy who helped foil me at Gettysburg. Now again, it's hyperbole, but again, it shows you how much friendship that's going to have between those two.
Yeah. Well, and then Ghost of Sickles' Leg had a really good comment about, he said, Howard and Sickles, I think that's the making of a Civil War sitcom.
Howard and Sickles. Did we do an episode about that? Where I did like an odd couple picture. Was
Yeah.
that? I think we did.
Yeah.
Because
Well, the funny thing about Sickles is he's obviously friends with everybody. He's friends with Howard after the war, because why not? And so Howard invites him to his 70th birthday party, and Sickles is the keynote speaker.
and we've talked to our friend Jim, who's a big Sickles guy, and we've been trying to find these notes of this party, because you can imagine. I mean,
The speech.
the speech that he gave must have been fantastic.
He must have
But
just roasted Howard.
he did, because the thing about one of the biggest misconceptions of Dan Sickles is that he was dumb. The dude was brilliant. If you ever get a chance, read his letters. I mean, make your
Yeah.
brain hurt. The dude was smart, and he gave that speech and that must have been so much fun.
Didn't
I
you
mean,
say that he likely said, I gave an arm,
if he, if
I
he
gave a
said
leg?
if he said, Howard, you and I give an arm and a leg in this war. If he did not say that, I will have no respect for him, because that was such an easy joke to start with. I bet you he did. But again, that's how it was. And these are two people who you could not get more polar opposites in every way, shape, or form as Dan Sickles and Oliver Otis Howard. I mean, this is quite a thing. So for these guys to have these conversations after the war, I just it's one of those
And you
great
know
fly on the
everybody
wall
but
things.
Howard got banged up at his 70th birthday party. You know Sickles got drunk at it
Oh,
probably.
I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did. But again, you think about it. You're making your birthday list, and yeah, Sickles. Let's bring Sickles in. He's the life of the party. There's
Yeah.
that question we get sometimes. People will say, if you could drink with one person in the Civil War, who would it be? It has to be Sickles. What are you
Yeah.
going to drink? What are you going to drink with Lee? How fun that would be? No.
Oh, no.
You're going to
No.
drink with Meade. That's a good time. That's a face that could sink a ship right there. And you're going to drink with him? No. It has to be Sickles. Has to be Sickles. You know it because it'd be fun. It'd be fun conversation, the stories, the war stories. He's embellishing about how he himself, forget Dave Belberni, forget Humphreys. It was me who saved the Union at the peach orchard.
Oh yeah.
That's what he would. It'd be it'd be a fun story though. It'd be so much fun.
I think I would drink with Carl Schurz. He'd have some good stories.
Yeah. Well,
not only is he in Civil War, but he's like some kind of James Bond guy over in Germany because he broke his commandant out of Spandau.
Yeah.
He must have had some friggin' stories. Carl Schurz also looks like he either could really mess you up or he knows someone that does. That could.
Yeah, no, he looks like the dude in Pulp Fiction, the cleaner, the guy. I forget the actor who played him, but that's sure he always has that something smells look on your face,
Yeah.
But it is funny when you talk about a lot of these guys. So they did embellish some stuff. Sickles did feel like he saved the day.
Yeah.
And he tried to get credit for it. And if and it's a big reason why he spent so much effort to preserve the battlefields. And he famously said, "I don't need a monument; I have the whole battlefield."
Yeah,
he's
the
not
whole battlefield
wrong.
is my
He's
monument.
not wrong. When you're sitting up there in Little Round Top and you're smoking your cigar and you're looking at the sunset, and you don't see a cul-de-sac in front of you, thanks Dan Sickles for that.
Yep.
I mean, that's absolutely true.
Schurz was Harvey Keitel's character.
Yes. Harvey Keitel. I could see his face. I couldn't remember his name, but that's who he would have probably been. I don't know, maybe.
There's, where is it here? There was another what if question from Trevor. Trevor said, "What if Sickles had not moved out to the peach orchard?"
That's a question you get a lot, right? I don't think it makes a difference because they still would have basically gone around because Lee thought the Union ended pretty much where the Vermont marker is now, where the soldiers, the regulars is. They were up at Little Round Top. At least that's where he would have been. So let's just play this out. Say Sickles doesn't move. He's now Low Valley, just north of Little Round Top. They're going to have to go find him. That means the Confederates are going to have to still get up Little Round Top, come around, go through all, basically go where the Sixth Corps monuments are. They're coming up that way, using the Emmitsburg Road as a marker. I don't think it makes a difference. I don't think it does. Where it changed it was McLaws was going to be the first one to hit, and then Longstreet. Hood was going to come around and kind of on the right hand side and kind of finish it off. Now Hood has to swing first, so Hood's the right hook now. Versus McLaws is going to have to be the jab instead of vice versa. So it changed the game plan. I don't think it makes a difference.
No,
I think for the most part they still stall out because again, Carter Posey and Billy Mahone and David Lang fell back, but there was no support.
Yeah.
But you sit there and you imagine how it would have been. That position, Lee's plan is great if the Union line ends where he thought it did.
Yeah.
But when it doesn't, they would have had that moment where they said, wait, where the hell? These guys are further than we thought. Now still got to go through Big Round Top, still going to come where Oates' guys down, and now push their way north through that crappy land, the muck and the rocks, go by where the weaker farmers now.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, the Confederate attack was easier because now you're fighting straight across. But again, it changed the direction of how it was supposed to go. McLaws was always supposed to be first, and he had to bug up his ass that whole day, and it's why he led the counter march with Kershaw in the front. And now Hood's the guy who's going to swing around with the Vandal Law. So that's where the battle changes. I don't think it changes any history. I think it just changes the direction of who fights where. You're still going to have Jerome Robertson and George Benning. You're still going to have all these guys going right across. And at the end of the day, it's going to stall with right, realistically.
Yeah. Our friend Bjorn is on here from Abraham Lincoln Bookshop.
Hey, Bjorn.
Yes, got the book. Thank you for that. And yes, again, you can get this book from Bjorn, as well as a lot of
Mary
other
is
books too.
Actually in the glossary. She's a footnote.
Yep,
that's pretty. Wow.
Bjorn, we are coming to Chicago too.
We are going to be in Chicago, Bjorn. I will reach out to you. We're going to be up there in the fall. We will definitely come see your bookstore. We're going to go up there for a weekend to see a friend, and we're going to stop by and come see you.
Yeah,
I've already been there.
I know. I haven't. I want to go so bad.
Oh, I got one on you right there.
Yeah,
it's his old hat now for me.
Oh, his bookshop is like a museum.
Oh, I was so impressed by that. We've talked about this before, but I mean, I don't know what to expect. And it's my own damn fault for not looking up. But I thought it was going to be like a Borders, one of those books, just a big bookshop. But it wasn't what I thought. It was more like a museum, like a Simon shop full of really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And we'll do that and take the picture with him in front of the big Lincoln. You gotta do that.
Oh yeah, he's got the big Lincoln there.
Yeah.
But yeah, he does Abraham Lincoln Bookshop does great Civil War Facebook lives, or not Civil War Facebook lives, but Facebook lives with authors obviously writing about the Civil War or something to do with it. And they're really, really good. And they always have the books available there.
He always gets all dressed up, looks all nice with similar t-shirts on, but he's looking pretty impressive. And having Stacy on there, Dr. Stacy that was a good one.
Yeah.
And she's good people. So he brings on people. So he has that better partner with him.
Yeah. That was a great one too. Bennett is such a good kid.
Yeah.
I really like him.
And I think he had who else did we have on recently? He's probably done a ton of people on, but I know that was Bennett was one we had on because we had Bennett on too, and that was pretty cool. But again, if you're in Chicago, check it out. It's worth the Uber ride over there.
Yeah. Frank mentions that at Abraham Lincoln Bookshop they have a Howard autobiography, like they have the memoirs.
Oh, very cool.
God, I'd love to get my hands
on
that.
Frank's been there too.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Bjorn says we're a museum where you can buy the exhibits and take them home.
He's not wrong. Definitely, Bjorn, what you should do is drop your the bookshop line on here so people can look it up, because in case they're in Chicago, we have people here in that part of the world.
Actually, I can do that right now.
Okay.
Abraham.
It's definitely, like I said before, it's really, really cool. It's just fun conversation. It's a good place to nerd out for an hour and talk stuff. And you'll show,
yeah.
Oh, you want to see an original Mead picture signed? Here you go. You want to see this? It's just like, holy crap.
And they also know their history there too.
Mm-hmm.
There, I put the link into the bookshop if anyone wants to go check it out.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, follow them on Facebook too.
Mm-hmm. No, and we got to do trivia pretty soon again. He's the one who gives us all the books with trivia, so we have to do that again.
Yeah, great sponsor for that.
The Leonard trivia contest we always see.
Yeah, Leonard wins so much.
Every single
time. We are going to be doing another roundtable again too on via Zoom as well. Trevor asked, is the baseball picture of Union prisoners at a Confederate prison in Salisbury, North Carolina, the first baseball game in the South?
No, there's one actually that was taken. No, it wasn't in Salisbury. It was somewhere else. It was outside of Charleston. I know the picture he's talking about. I just don't know the timeline. But that's credited. That one is one of the ones credited for the first ever baseball picture, the first ever one. And I believe it's a New York regiment that's in the outfield, and you can see the soldiers drilling in the foreground. But I don't think it's Salisbury. I think it's somewhere else. Fort Pulaski. There's a famous Fort Pulaski baseball picture which was taken 64, right around there.
Yeah.
But the Salisbury one, I think is I could be totally wrong, but I think that picture picture is definitely one of the first ones, no question.
Yeah, and Jeffrey mentions that baseball was prevalent north and south for years before the war. Jeffrey also said it was nice to see you guys were able to see the Rosewoods Clown make it to Gettysburg Bike Week.
I was surprised to see him out of his element. I'm not gonna lie to you, Mary. I was. That was. He's.
Imagine if there's a clown in the parade today.
You know where he was going? He was going to see Annabelle. That's
what MJ just said.
You cannot let them get together. Can you friggin' imagine? They'd be like Beetlejuice in this town. I gotta tell Demko to keep that. If the Rosewoods Clown shows up, they should take Annabelle into the Rosewoods. Can you imagine that?
That's the most haunted place in the.
It probably is. But yeah, there's a lot of that. This town is it is the land of the misfit toys right now. It just is. As the motorcycles go by and the paranormal people, and we were talking to Janet over at Gettysburg this morning. I was surprised here there wasn't as many people for Annabelle as I thought there'd be. You could pay $40 and you can stand there for 30 minutes, hear the story, and take a picture with it.
Yeah.
And they have a picture of the Annabelle from the movie right next to it. So you see the real and the.
Yeah.
It's not really. I love that stuff, but I don't think I want to be doing
Gettysburg addresses. Gettysburg's on here. I don't want to upset anyone, but Annabelle may have escaped.
See what happens. That's but the thing about it's cool that it's here, and it's pretty cool that people are excited about it. It's what makes Gettysburg. It's just one of those.
I saw something really sad. I find it sad. There was two people slamming the ghost tours on a Gettysburg business or a Facebook site the other day, and I
Yeah.
didn't get involved, but that really bothers me because they are a business, they are trying to make money, and this one person said that they make up all the history, none of it's true, blah blah blah. Meanwhile, she'd never been on a ghost tour. Um,
Well,
yes, some of the history is made up and embellished. There are ghost tours that do that, but a lot of it is correct history, and a lot of it is not. It's not ghost stories. It is telling the history of the town.
no, it's all local history. It's all, and they'll tell the story. I mean, you can go to Farnsworth House, you can go to Tom Demko's orphanage, which I highly suggest. That's a really the orphanage
Yeah,
is a thing. Go to
because
that.
they also talk about the history
Right, and
as well.
we got to talk to him because we were supposed to do that thing for him. Remember?
Yeah,
Uh, but but they talk about here's Rosa Carmichael. Here's a story with Stick Boy. Here's where the kids, why they were held here, what was going on, and then they'll sit there and say, and the legend has it that the ghost still, so that they put that in, but it's mostly local history. And that's what most of the towns do.
yeah.
We went to one up in Salem,
It was really
Massachusetts,
good
right?
too.
And
Hmm.
it wasn't so much the ghosts as it was, here's, they talk about uh, Harry Houdini lived in Salem, and
Yeah,
he talked about his house and all this other stuff being haunted. Look, you can believe in it, you can not believe in it, but everyone loves a good ghost story. And
exactly.
people
Yeah, and
who,
it's
and for people who, listen, the reality is this: if you're in Gettysburg and the sun goes down and you're not a big beer guy,
yeah,
you got to find something to do.
yeah,
So you're gonna, and especially if you have kids, people love the idea of walking down the street with a lantern. Look, whether the story's true or not, hell, there are Civil War stories that are made up
exactly.
that are
They're
not based in any reality whatsoever.
exactly.
But no one's attacking them for it. So it just,
No, it
teach
was
their own. If you don't like to do it, don't do it. But don't look down on people who don't. I mean, some people like chocolate ice cream, some people like vanilla ice cream. Don't rip on the
yeah.
people
Some
who don't.
people like Mr. G's and some people don't.
I don't dislike Mr. G's. I just think it's overrated. I like
I do
Baltimore
too.
Creamery better.
Yeah,
That's all I'm saying. I like half pint.
yeah,
Not that that's Mr. G's, but again, I think our friend John over there at the Baltimore Creamery is really, really good.
yeah,
You can get Mr. G's at Gettysburg, by the way, ice cream. Speaking of Gettysburg,
yeah,
they
yeah.
have
You
they
can,
have a pint, and it is good. Don't get me wrong, it's good ice
it's
cream,
good ice cream.
but it's ice cream. You
Yeah.
know?
Jeffrey said that he loves our Halloween episodes. Yes, we do that every year with our friend Jen Price. And
Yep.
the thing is like Jen is like us. She's also into the ghosts too. But she knows her history. Dan Sickles is her favorite. Like you can sit and talk to the girl for hours about like she knows her shit, especially Antietam. She's Antietam's her battle, but she knows her stuff, but she also has really great ghost stories. And I remember the one she told, the African American from Harper's Ferry. Um, like that was such a great story. And the thing with, whether or not you agree with the ghost tours, whatever, but they're here trying to make business. And um as Cisco says, it's something to do after hours. Like and we took our friend's son on one of them and a walking one, and it was really, really good. And he toned it down because we had our friend's son with us, and he was like, what was he, like 8 at the time or something? Um, Noelle says the Sox Bridge ghost stories are the best. Take the bus tour.
Okay,
Um,
and look, I realized that people weren't hanged and it was all made up.
but
Like
no,
I
Noelle is saying that the Sox
right.
Bridge tour is really good.
No, right, but that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of my fish. The fish was this big stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and look, take it with a grain of salt, but they're still fun
Yep.
stories. I mean, for God's sake, I mean,
It's a way to learn about the history of the town too. Like that's the thing. It's a way to learn about the history of the town. And if you didn't have those ghost tours here, like that's a source of income for the town that I think they need, and um someone who grew up and worked in a local business in Canada, you need the local businesses. Um, Trevor, do the ghost stories at Gettysburg talk about General Garnett since his body was never found after Pickett's charge?
ooh, see that'd be the real one right there.
He's, I mean, this is my own opinion on Garnett. If you want to see his grave, it is in Richmond. Parts of him are definitely there, I think. But parts of him are probably also still here because how many feet was that canister?
10, 20 feet.
get hit
Double
with
double
canister at
triple.
10 or 20 feet.
Nah, he didn't make it. He didn't make it.
His
But I,
horse survived, which is random, which I
yeah,
suspect he jumped off the horse.
yeah, but you know that's the thing. But to go back to your bigger point though is people like what they like, they don't like what they don't like. But at the same time, there's too much bitching. There's too much crap
Oh my God.
about I don't like this, so you shouldn't either. You know what? Screw that. If you like your ghost
Yep.
tours, go do your damn ghost tours. It's harmless.
And
I
if you've
mean,
had experiences on the battlefield, great. If you haven't, that's okay too. Like,
you know,
it's just MJ, did someone mention Garnett? Um, I mean, I know what I saw in the Rosewoods the one day,
oh
or
yeah.
outside of it. I know what I saw.
Hey, rumor
You know,
has it that Annabelle has come to life and is now walking around
really?
outside of Gettysburg. Just my sources close to Gettysburg have told me that is now full size and is now roaming the streets. So
Cisco Garnett, where's he buried? Oh, here and there.
no,
Shouldn't laugh, but
no, but it's you know it's fun. It's part of the fun. It's part of the entertainment. People just go and enjoy the damn thing. But look, I realize you can sit there and hear these stories about how this guy, the ghost of this guy from Tennessee, and I can sit there and go, well, no, because Tennessee, this guy wasn't in the Tennessee
yeah.
regiment. He was in a different, so it's not true. But at the same time, I can go to a history lecture in town, and I can hear bad info too.
Yes.
And so because a lot of the stuff has been debunked. So it's the same thing.
Yep. Yeah. It's just, you know what? If you don't like the ghost tours, that's fine. But if you do, go on them. Highly recommend the Farnsworth House one in the basement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
take it for what it is. It's fun. That's all it is. It's fun. It doesn't take away from the history. No one's being disrespectful. It's for God's sakes, just live a little.
And as MJ says, the Rosewoods does have an energy to it. It's just like if you go to Chickamauga, go out to Bragg's headquarters and tell me that's not a negative spot, because it is.
I could take Funko Mary to Gettysburg. Maybe we could put her next to Annabelle,
No,
right?
no, we don't need that energy.
We could have both of these right next to. Imagine that. Take a picture with Funko Mary with the Annabelle.
It's like my mom, I was telling you this one time, this is kind of getting off topic, but there was this Titanic exhibit and you could buy coal that was apparently on the Titanic. It had been brought up and she bought me a piece of it and I refused to take it. I'm like, no. She's like, why? And I'm like, because
It's kind of bad karma, I think.
I'm like, that's bad. That's got bad juju all over it.
No, it
I'm like,
definitely is.
it's
But
haunted. Like,
but as much as we have fun with the goings on in the town right now, and I realize not the whole world is on Gettysburg, but that's where we are, so you got to deal with it, I guess.
yeah. But I mean,
there's a lot of fun stuff going on
yeah,
right now. So and it's
yeah.
great because it reenactment weekend, the anniversary week was last weekend, so now you've kind of gone into a different um it's
Gettysburg just said, bring baby Mary.
Funko Mary is going to meet Annabelle today.
No.
Can you you're gonna hear this thing running across the room tomorrow? No,
You already freaked Jan out with that lady.
Oh yeah. We tell stories about school,
but anyway, just getting back to the Civil War, what was I going to say? So we've got episode about Canada coming up, and about McPherson as well, which I will like. Oh, and Amanda's on here, a friend who we're going to see in Chicago in September. She said my niece enjoyed the ghost tour she went on. Yeah, they're great for kids. Like,
so Amanda's on.
Yep.
So Amanda, have you been to Bjorn's bookstore, Abraham Lincoln Bookshop? Have you been there?
I don't think she has yet.
Well, shame on her because she lives in
She'll have
Chicago.
to come with us.
So we'll be going there. So you'll be there. So yeah,
James, we love Funko Mary.
We're taking Funko Mary out in the town today.
Could you imagine we just started taking her?
Maybe she'll go on a bike and cruise up the parade.
Maybe she'll go to the mine tonight.
See, this is where stupid things happen, which I like.
Yeah. Bjorn mentions all Bragg headquarters sites have negative energy. That guy was so wound up with his bad vibes still. Yeah. Reading about him in Powell's, and I think Bjorn's read Powell's trilogy on Chickamauga as well. But reading about Bragg and Powell's, like, oh my God, I would not want to. I mean, I like Bragg. I think he's a fascinating individual, but I would not have wanted to work for him.
No, he was a tough, hard-driving guy.
But he had health problems. He likely, just reading what he likely had celiac disease, I think. So if he ate anything with wheat in it, he was going to be effed up.
Is that when you get silly?
Yeah, celiac disease. Anyway, but he had all these health ailments. The other one that had health problems too, which is why he was probably so grumpy, was D.H. Hill. He had a lot of back problems, apparently.
Mhm.
But anyway, like reading about Bragg and just that turmoil in the Army of Tennessee 162 years ago at this time, you're coming off of Tullahoma, which you've been pantsed hard and had to
Mhm.
retreat into Chattanooga, um, which Powell gives a great overview of the Tullahoma campaign. And then you're like trying to figure things out. Your command hates you. Hardy has gone, he's like zooped out of there because he does not want anything to do with Bragg at all. And that's why they have to bring D.H. Hill in.
Yeah, I mean, Bragg. The thing about Braxton Bragg is he wasn't all there. There's rumors that he might have had Asperger's or something along those
Yeah, that's
lines.
what Caleb just said, that
Right.
Bragg was on
And so
on the
no,
spectrum.
obviously that's where you get in trouble. You start diagnosing people, right?
Yeah.
But he was very. I think he was a very A type OCD type of person,
Oh
where
yeah.
like many of these military people, like Jackson, for example, who clearly was on the spectrum. No,
Mm.
I don't want to hear it because he clearly was. And this is not a shot on Jackson. He just read the stuff I've read about him, but things have to go a certain way. And I think that's why Bragg did such a good job arranging that Army of Tennessee when he first
Yep.
took it over. I mean, he was shooting stragglers, and he kept
Yep.
the ship going tight. But I think the problem with Bragg is he had too many subordinate generals who thought they should be in charge.
Yep.
And if you have too many of those, it's kind of like a baseball team.
Yep.
If you're the manager, and there are too many people who think that they should be running the show, you're going to run into conflict. I think Bragg, to be totally honest, our friend Jacob is a big Bragg guy. I think I think Bragg gets a real bad deal with historical memory.
Yep.
I mean, this is a guy who was constantly sick all the time.
Yep.
But I think at the end of the day, what happened with him is he just had too many cooks in the kitchen,
Yep.
and I think his personality was not such that he was very inclusive of his men, and he became very
Yep.
aloof. And I think it would have been an easy guy to hate on, and that's what they
Bishop
signed.
Polk hated him.
Right, but they all signed that
Yep.
petition. Claiborne and all these guys.
And Hardy went to Claiborne after. He's like, dude, what are you doing signing that petition?
And I think for the most part too is I think he was somebody who was wrong place, wrong time,
Yep.
right? Where again, the person who should have stuck with that job and stayed with that job was Joseph E. Johnson. He
Yep.
was he was the one who could read the room. He knew when to fold him, when to hold him, the whole deal. But his problem was that he wasn't aggressive at all. And that's what ultimately cost him his job when he fell back to Atlanta when
Yep.
Hood took over. But again, don't forget too. I mean, Bragg did pretty good at Chickamauga.
Yep.
He did.
Oh
And
yeah.
if it was for Minty and Wilder holding those bridges, that they could have got into Chattanooga very easily. So sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't. I think his problem was once everyone fell back on Chattanooga, you have that dilemma. Do I shell a southern city? No, you
Yeah.
can't. You can't do that. You can't. Do I invade across these rivers? I don't think I can do that with the army I have. And now friggin' Grant shows up.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
shit! Now we're in four
Oh
now.
shit.
Oh shit. So
That
it's
was
it, it's
that must have been. You imagine Bragg when he's like,
but the
Grant's
thing,
here.
I don't want to sit here and do a big circle J on Bragg. That's okay, but I will say this: he did screw up Tullahoma badly.
Okay.
And that's the thing too, is that he lost Tullahoma without even a fight. And that's but he did the right things as far as Ringo Gap. He's going to put Claiborne there. He's going to protect the supplies. He does everything right. But again, it's tough to look at Stones River. It's tough to look at Tullahoma because that's where rubber meets the road. When you're talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly with these people, the people who hate Bragg, it's primarily because of Tullahoma, right, in Chattanooga.
Yep. Yep.
And they're not wrong. I mean, but
Yep.
but again, you forget Chickamauga, you forget the organization of the army, you forget how he
Yep.
did that. So it's unfair to sit there and go, okay, he sucks, he's good, they all good, and they all suck. Every one of these
Yep.
guys at different levels. You just got to pick your poison, right?
Um, so I gonna say here. Caleb said personally, I think the biggest problem with Bragg was Jeff Davis.
Well,
That
Davis
too.
was everybody's problem. That's the thing too, and I'm glad he brought that up too. Jefferson Davis, this is the guy who immediately was fighting with Beauregard on day one after First Manassas, right? What general, besides probably Lee, and this is post June 1st, 62
Yep.
Lee, not Sheet Mountain Lee, right? What general did Jefferson Davis not think he was smarter than?
Yep.
He thought he wanted to be in the field. If it wasn't Robert Toombs getting hammered drunk at the convention, Toombs would have been president. Jefferson Davis
Yep.
probably would have been in the field.
Yep.
So unfortunately, it's tough to look at Davis with these generals because he poisoned almost every single one of them historically, right? And he puts us like a lot of these guys nowadays, they put their favorite people in charge.
Yep. Then
But
that's the one thing that Powell talks about in his Chickamauga book is that here's Davis putting these people in charge, and Bragg has inherited a very broken Army of Tennessee. It was messed up from day one. Bjorn also mentions that David Powell is writing about the Atlanta campaign now, and he's been writing about the Johnson controversies in his current volume.
Dave Powell's good.
Oh, he's a great writer.
He's good.
I've got the book. I don't know if it's still in print or not. Bjorn probably knows.
The trilogy?
Yeah, the first book though. I remember I got the second and third when I was at Chickamauga because they didn't have the first, and then you had the first one, so we have the complete set now. But this, the Chickamauga campaign, A Mad Irregular Battle, awesome book. If you've been stuck in the Gettysburg thing for a while, highly recommend reading this one. Fascinating campaign, Chickamauga campaign. Great. I'm like 60 pages in and he's only talking about Army of Tennessee, the reorganization of it. So he sets it up very well to know what they're going to be going into on September 18th. On the Union side of things, he talks about John T. Wilder. Really, really great guy. I love that we saw his grave.
Yeah, he's a fascinating guy with a lot of these people. And it just goes to show not every one of these people defines themselves by the military.
No, because he's got no mention of it on his grave. He's also got no mention that he's mayor of Chattanooga.
Well, it's like Sheridan.
Yeah. Well,
it just has his name.
Sheridan and John T. Wilder are two very different people.
No, I'm just saying though, those graves are relatively. I mean, Sheridan's he's buried right at the point over there by the Custis House.
Got a beautiful view.
Yeah, but Wilder is somebody who I think he was one of those dudes who did his job.
Yep.
And felt that he did it, and that was the end of it. Even Meade's grave is nondescript.
Yeah, and Wilder is a guy he's very well off. He's able to purchase the Spencer repeaters for his men. Yeah. And they all were going to pay him back. And then the War Department was like, wow, these things actually work. We should buy them. And they did. And as Bjorn says, the Chickamauga, it's a valuable set. Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading the whole thing.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating because and you can, like we spend a lot of time in cemeteries because a lot of people do, is you can tell the mindset. I mean, you can look at someone like a Dan Butterfield, who has the Taj Mahal at West Point, versus some of these ones like Meade or some of these other ones who is very nondescript about it.
Yeah. The other thing too that speaking of cemeteries that I love about the National Cemetery in Chattanooga is that whole story with Thomas. When someone's like, oh, we need to bury the people from Michigan all together, and Thomas is like, I'm tired of states' rights, mix them up.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, that's you're going by the politics of the day and stuff like that too. And George Thomas, again, he's someone who historically is very underrated, and they kept him at arm's length because of the Virginia thing. And this is the Lincoln administration. So
we're going to do an episode about him at some point too, because he needs an episode.
No, but that's a great thing about talking Civil War is there's no lack of subjects.
No, and I'm really looking forward to the McPherson one because he is a guy, again, we're going back to the Western Theater, which is my jam, obviously. But you want to get into a debate with somebody, you debate who the highest ranking officer killed in the war was. If you say it's McPherson, people are going to be like, no, it wasn't, it was Reynolds. It's like, no, it's not how it works.
Well, and it goes back to the whole thing about what's more, you run an army versus when you got your star and stuff like that, which just, again, people are going to debate all this stuff. They're going to question everything. And that's what's kind of good about it. But at the end of the day, it just it's all opinion anyway. That's good about history is that it's not science. It's
Mhm.
it's not you could unlike science where it's not I believe in it. It's just is what it is.
Yeah.
You can accept for certain philosophies and certain theories and historical points because that's what it is. It's all opinion.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
story. That's what's great about it. Every one of these stories is word of mouth. Nobody was there,
Yeah.
so you choose who you believe.
Yeah.
But guys
And
like Powell are really really good.
oh, he's
I
a
know people
great
don't like
writer.
Gelzo, but Gelzo was really,
God,
really
he's
good.
such a
Um,
Gelso's such a nice guy. Like
no, he's a great guy. When we had him
he's
on,
like
that was
sitting
so
and
much
talking
fun.
to your grandfather.
Yeah.
Like,
No, and he is, and we talked to him at the seminary, but we had him on to talk about his book about a couple of years, I guess about a year or so. You know, and he's I could talk to that dude forever and ever and ever.
oh my God.
But people don't like him for the meat thing, but he's not wrong about the meat thing. It's just his
He has a
opinion.
picture of meat in his office.
Yeah, yeah. But he's a fascinating character who is just brilliant and knows his stuff. And you can sit there and talk with him for if you're into the Civil War, you could talk with him for hours, hours and
Yeah,
hours and hours. And we had a great talk with him. I wish we
I
recorded
know.
we stopped filming it or recording it, and then we had like a 45-minute conversation where he kind of opened up a little about different things. I'm like, oh,
I didn't realize he was such a Howard guy.
I would have killed to have that recorded because that would have been a side of Gelzo that people would have really liked, and I think people never see because he was very, very,
He
very laid back.
he was the first person I ever asked, do you think Howard was an abolitionist? And he said yes. And that's what I've always thought about
Well,
Howard
I mean
is
that's not exactly rocket science,
Captain Obvious, but
but
um
historians for the most part will be well, he was just kind of like yeah, freaking of course he was,
yeah. Um, Gina mentions, and I know I think she writes, I think she's a playwright or an author.
Yeah,
She said did a lot on Chickamauga, and it's the battle of her third book. And she says she finds Rosecrans very interesting.
yeah. Rosecrans is a guy we've talked a lot about here because we feel that he's another very underrated guy.
Yeah,
Rosecrans is a guy who was very successful early.
yeah,
He crossed grants after Iuka with going to the newspaper, and he kind of got blackballed, and he kind of got screwed over at Chattanooga a little bit with the Cracker Line and stuff like that. The Grant people hate Rosecrans. I don't know if you know this, Mary, but that's just the
no,
reality.
I've never had a run-in with a Grant person over Rosecrans, never.
But again, he's somebody who is very underappreciated because he's like yesterday's news. Once Grant comes along, he gets thrown out the window. And you look at Stones River, you go back, and now you look at Tullahoma from the other side, right, with Bragg, how
Yeah,
brilliant that was. Tullahoma is up there with the landing at Vicksburg as far as most brilliant campaigns.
that's what Abraham Lincoln said about it too. Like it was
Yeah.
a brilliant campaign. Oh, someone just mentioned they live near Lake Huron. That's where I
Oh,
grew up.
so you could probably find Mary's beer cans floating in the lake probably at some point.
I grew up in Lake Huron. Um, Goderich is my hometown Goderich is right across the lake from Harbor Bay, I think. Bjorn mentions Alan Gelzo has written so many great works of political history. His military history is also very good.
The thing about Gelzo, you mentioned a few minutes ago, you're talking with him. You've got to catch yourself and go, this dude wasn't there. Like he's like talking like an old war, like a Vietnam War vet at the bar, telling his stories about all the Tet Offensive and all these things, and who was there. You're talking to
Yep.
Gelzo. He talks about the Civil War like he was there.
Well,
And you
so
get
does what's his face, Kent Masterson
Ken
Brown.
Master on similar, but Gelzo is just the way it's just the way he is. It's just a fantastic
Yep.
it's just a fantastic source. If you ever get a chance to talk to Gelzo, if you ever do, and get him talking, you will be stunned at how he is. He's just a very, very cool dude,
Yep.
and I know people don't have issues with him because Meade, and he doesn't say anything wrong about Meade. He just
No.
talks about things that the Meade people don't like to talk about.
Yeah, it goes back to that whole thing when you mention like with Grant, when you mention Rosecrans, the Grant people are like, "Oh my God, I hate Rosecrans." It's like, "What about Grant?" It's like, we're not talking about Grant right now.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's okay. But again, people have their favorites. They have their binkies. The Grant
Yeah.
people don't like Rosecrans. That's fine. There's no shame in it. It's just how people choose to like what they don't like. That's all.
Yeah.
Teach their own. Like I said, teach their own. Some people like Lionel Richie, some people don't, Mary. That's a secret to
Yep.
life. Just deal with this.
Mayor's Labatt's cans can find their way over the falls and wash up here in the beaches of Lake Ontario.
Yeah, that's gonna happen. You know.
Yeah. Brooklyn mentions that they stayed in the house that Sheridan stayed in Harper's Ferry.
Oh no way! That's really cool. I love Harper's Ferry
Yeah.
when you can park.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, when you can park, you have to get there very early this time of year. But yeah, like just reading, like, Chickamauga. I'm still finishing Gelzo's bio on Lee as well, but I wanted to get into the Chickamauga campaign because we're doing that episode with Darren Rawlings. Brooklyn asked, "Is Meade underappreciated?" Yes.
Oh, he absolutely is. And
Yes.
it's so funny when you talk to somebody and go, well, Meade, he wasn't liked in the army because he was fired when Grant came east.
I was like, no.
And it's like one of those cringy. That's up there with what if Stonewall was at Gettysburg for me. And it's like, no, he wasn't. And I think he was underappreciated. The thing about Meade was, he liked you or he hated you, right?
Yep.
He hated Sheridan. He
Oh,
hated
I can
he
understand that.
he hated Sheridan more than Buffalo Bills hate playoff football. That's how much he hated him, right? So he ultimately ended up getting a lot of press and a lot of success after Gettysburg, but he got hit a little bit on the retreat.
Yeah.
But then when he ends up in the East, when Grant comes out here, Grant makes sure, like we said before, that Meade's AOP gets credit for bagging Lee. He doesn't bring so he appreciated him, but he had the temper. He would scream and yell. And I know a lot of if you read Rufus Dawes' diary, he talks about the fact that a lot of the men didn't like him.
Yeah.
They said he would come by and he'd pull his hat down over their face, and he wouldn't want
Yeah.
to show. He wouldn't want to make eye contact with them. But you got to remember too, is these guys loved McClellan, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of them loved Hooker, right? So this was the new dad coming in.
Yeah.
You're not my father, right?
Yeah.
And there was a lot of that in these diaries too. But he absolutely was underappreciated. There's no question he was.
Yeah. Howard liked him. And Howard was the one that stood up for him after Gettysburg because he wrote Lincoln that off the record letter where he's like, you need to stop slamming us in the newspapers because guess what? We're broken. And Howard like lays out everything. Like imagine you're Howard, you're 32. Yeah, he's 32 years old. You're writing the president of the United States to basically tell him to shut the F up.
That's the thing that's always fascinating to me is you see these pictures, right? And you realize how young these people were.
Yeah, Howard's 32 years old
they
here.
really were. I mean, Patrick Henry O'Rourke, Patty O'Rourke, 21.
Yep.
It's crazy,
Howard was 33 when he was on the Atlanta campaign, and he turned 34 the day before the March to the Sea began.
Yeah. And so when you think about what you would do when you, I don't mean you personally, but people in general, when you're 34 years old, or God knows, probably live in your parents' basement, probably.
Yeah. Jeez, could you imagine? We should probably jump off here. It's 11:45 now.
Oh, time flies.
Yeah.
So what's coming up for us? We're going to do the episode on Canada this
episode
week,
on
right?
Canada. Episode Amish in the Civil War. Right?
Yeah, we're going to do it. That's my latest rabbit hole. Is I've been being a city guy. I've been fascinated with the Amish, right? Because we went out there a few months or so ago, and I got to experience them over Lancaster. And so the Mennonites and the Amish and the Dunkers in the Civil War is a fascinating study, and it's never been done that I can see. So we're going to do an episode sometime next month on their impact, these pacifists, and how they reacted to conscription, and how they reacted to not being these non-resistants, and how their impact was, especially the battles here in the East.
Yeah.
How the Virginians dealt with the Amish during the draft. It's a kind of a neat study when you think about it. And so we're gonna see if we get that together for next month. That'll be cool.
Yeah, and then we're gonna do an episode about McPherson as well, coming up in August.
Yeah, so it'll be a lot of fun.
And the bikes are all going by.
As the bikes go by. So, all right, so why don't we jump off? So we'll have some fun talk about some ones coming up forward. And definitely we'll definitely have some things coming up. Look, we might maybe, I don't know if we are, so correct me here. We might be doing a Facebook Live possibly tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep, sometime
After
later
after I
afternoon.
get done with my Antietam stuff, we're going to go over to Williamsport where Lee crossed after the Gettysburg campaign. We might, if we have the internet going down there, we might do a live. So if you're on
Yep,
Facebook, keep an eye on that. We may do something like that. It's kind of like putting a bow on the end of the Gettysburg campaign. We did a
yep.
few lives, Facebook lives during the battle with the Longstreet countermarch. That was fun. And then we did Pickett's Charge. I think we did another one. I can't remember the other one we did.
Yeah, we did a few of them.
Oh,
Pickett's
yeah.
Charge, Countermarch, as well as one of the sites on the retreat. Frank said, see you in Gettysburg next week.
Oh, Frank's coming to Gettysburg next
Yep.
week. Very cool. So we'll definitely have to see him. No question about that. So hopefully everybody has a great day. Um, Red Sox are rolling merry. They're never going to lose
Yep.
again.
So are the
Ever.
so are the
Ever.
Guardians.
Oh, stupid Guardians. Anyway, off we go. So everybody have a great rest of the weekend. Stay cool. If we can survive bike week, we'll talk to some folks
Yep.
tomorrow. Probably, I think we'll be just fine. I think we're gonna head over to Getty's Gear right now and go see Carrie and Janet and Kat, and bring Funko Mary with
God.
us. I think that has to happen. If we can get a picture with Funko Mary with Annabelle, I think we have to
Oh,
do that. I think we have to.
God.
I don't know. We'll see. All right, everyone. We'll talk to y'all soon. See you around.